Good afternoon and welcome to the third and final episode of our Maritime webinar series. Today, we want to draw attention to ESG and sustainability, the relevance for ship owners and ship managers. My name is Finnern. I'm a maritime partner in our Hamburg office. Turning to the topic, this will no matter what affect the industry going forward. Sustainability is a topic of significant importance for the industry. It had climbed up the agenda in a tremendous speed over the last years, and over the last 24 months or so, the attention across the public and the industry has even increased considerably. For us, the advice and support to the maritime industry is, since our firm's inception, the core of our global activity. Therefore, we consider it as natural to pay attention to set challenges and changes. This is, in particular, to continue and standing aside our clients around the world, helping in particular to take steps needed to meet the IMO targets, as well as to understand the impact of issues around environment, social, and governance, ESG, affecting the industry going forward. And one element is of utmost importance for us, the dialogue with and between the range of industry players and stakeholders. Today, we want to learn and understand what steps shipping companies have already taken or added to their to-do lists. Therefore, I'm very pleased to welcome 4 guests from the industry. First of all, my welcome to Lucienne Damm of TUI Cruises. Lucienne is a political scientist and is working in the sustainable and environmental field over 13 years. For nearly 10 years, she's working as Senior Environmental Manager at TUI Cruises, a German premium cruise line operator. Among others, she's responsible for the company's environmental strategy and supporting projects, shoreside and fleet environmental management systems and reporting processes. She is involved in TUI Cruises' new build projects, always looking for sustainability innovations. With a background in research on environmental policy and covering transport at NABU, Lucienne is since 2015 Vice Chairwoman of Futuris e.V. and a member of the Sustainability Committee of German Travel Association. TUI Cruises is a 50-50 joint venture based in Hamburg between TUI AG and Royal Caribbean Cruises. The business was founded in 2008 and operates in the premium volume segment, and very well known for the Mein Schiff fleet. TUI Cruises recently acquired Hamburg Cruises to further complete the offering. I'm also very happy to welcome Rychly of Mpc Capital. Christian is Managing Director and in his role as Head of Shipping responsible for all shipping activities of the Mpc Capital Group. Prior to joining Mpc in 2018, Christian was Managing Director of Leonard and Bloomberg. He's a Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers and holds an MBA from the University of Wales. Mpc Capital is an international real asset and investment manager, active for international institutional and professional investors, as well as a family offices with a focus on 3 core segments: real estate, infrastructure, and of course, shipping. Mpc has around 1.9 billion of shipping assets under management. It's covering the full life cycle of ships. Amongst others, includes commercial and technical management of maritime assets. And my welcome to Christopher Fee of Oldendorff Carriers. Chris began his shipping career in South Africa, working for a global logistics company. In 2009, he moved to Germany, where he worked on operational and technical roles for various ship managers and ship owners. In 2013, he joined Oldendorff Carriers as a project manager for transshipment division before moving to fleet management and setting up the green shipping department. Since 2018, he is Oldendorff's general manager for environment and sustainability. Chris sits on the board of the Clean Shipping Alliance's BIMCO's Marine Environment Committee and participates on the Future Fuels and Technologies Working Group of the Getting to Zero Coalition. Oldendorff, now celebrating 100 years of inception since being formed as a German ship owner, has grown to one of the world's leading dry bulk operators with more than 4,000 employees around the world and operating around 750 chartered and owned ships, carrying 330 million metric tons of bulk and unitized cargo per year across the oceans. Last but no means least, it's my pleasure to welcome Martin MacMahon of Bernhard Schulte Shipmanagement. With a seagoing background in stations ashore in London, Galway, and Gibraltar, Martin has been working for BSM for more than 13 years. After holding various roles from Marine Superintendent, Operations Manager, and Ship Safety, he is part of BSM's sustainability team. In the role as Environmental Compliance Manager, he works closely with the ship management centers across the globe. Martin is a member of Intertanker's Environmental Committee. Bernhard Schulte Shipmanagement is an integrated maritime solution provider managing a fleet of 600 vessels. Alongside comprehensive ship management services, BSM offers a suite of complementary maritime solutions that are customized to meet individual customer requirements. As a member of the Schulte Group, BSM benefits from more than 135 years of experience in the industry. Now, as our panelists represent, to my view, a very interesting range of companies active in the shipping industry, before we start our discussion, we would be interested to hear your background. From what type of organization are you? Ship owner, ship manager, charterer, financier or investor, advisor, or others? So feel free to share with us before we continue. All right, thank you very much for participating. That's indeed very interesting. So now, turning with the background who we are here on the panel and in the audience, turning to the drivers for industry change. In the light of the IMO setting the goals on greenhouse gas emission reduction with a lot of work to be done on regulation, I would be really interested to hear from our panelists of your feeling comfortable that the shipping industry has a clear enough roadmap to reach the goals, to make research and development required fuel choices, investment decisions, and what around. Lucienne, may I ask you to share your view with us on that initial question?
Yeah, it's actually a very complex answer that's forming in my head, because in one hand, I think the roadmap or the goal, we as a shipping industry, but we also as a society and a global community, I mean, it's clear we have to cut our emission dramatically. So I guess the final goal where we want to be should be clear for everyone, being more or less carbon neutral or decarbonize our way of working dramatically over the next 20, 30 years, maybe even before. So, and the IMO is giving us, of course, some roadmaps here with some regulative tools that are either already decided on in force or that are coming up in the next years. Nevertheless, I feel that there could be a lot of more political framework being done maybe a little bit faster, because we as a company doing investment decisions kind of annually, it would help us to get a little bit more clear perspective on some of these regulative tools, like the ETS system or monitoring systems globally or so on. So that's kind of a little bit contradictory, you know, like the pressure also coming from the IMO or the UN as such, saying you have to move and you have to move faster. But on the other hand, on the regulatory side, it's kind of a very slow process, and we are really waiting there for still some technical guidance helping us what to expect over the next couple of years regarding the fleet, the management of our fleet. So it's kind of, you know, I would say there is, of course, clear goals and ambitions. We all should know where we are heading. But I guess there's still some uncertainty. Just the last point to that, I guess, as a shipping owner, having these vessels in operations, we know kind of the big challenges ahead. That is, of course, the fuel transition, getting alternative fuels into the market and get really renewable technologies or green technologies applied then to the marine sector, really on the deep sea shipping and so on. I think that's the biggest challenge, and we don't know yet where we are exactly in 10 or 15 years. There's a lot of solutions and ideas and concept out there, but it's not a clear pathway at the moment for the whole shipping industry, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that's very valuable information from your point of view. I think the roadmap is such clear enough. Martin, as you as Bernhard Schulte, a big ship manager on a large number of vessels, do you know what the roadmap you would show to your customers, your party manager, or generally the roadmap? Do you have a feeling that's clear enough, or would you join in Lucienne saying, okay, overall goal is clear, but we need to nail down a bit? What do you think?
I believe we all know what the road is. How to get down that road is a different story. The IMO have clearly said, okay, we want you to reduce emissions. When we initially heard of the Sulfur Cap 2020 coming out years ago, there was a lot of talk, a lot of debate saying, oh, this will never work, we can't do it. And then back in 2020, we did it. There was no major upset within trade. It ran smoothly. Ship owners, or should I say the ship managers in particular, we had to get the vessels ready, and we did. So from our perspective, just tell us what needs to be done, where that line is, and we can get across it no problem. Obviously, it depends on how big the goal is, and they say it's easy to get there, but the technology isn't, and the technology is taking a while to develop, and it will be some time before we can see ourselves as being zero emitters. But for that, we will need understanding and leeway. That we're very conservative, and we put a lot of money into these assets. In the last 25 years, if you look at the likes of when it comes to innovation and technology to deal with changes in society, nowadays with ESG, it's the big thing coming up front, and people want something changed now. With an iPhone, they've had so many iterations. You try changing a ship that's meant to last for 25 years and it's been built on consuming fuel oil only. It's not easy to turn it around. And the IMO and obviously ourselves in the industry has to recognize that, and we have to figure out how we're going to do it as a team. So the goal is there, it's obvious, but how do we switch it? Everybody thinks LNG is the future. It's one option, but that option lasts for 25 years. Now, what other options do we have left? It's going to take ages. We managed to do a huge shift from coal to oil, and that was way back in the day when we had coal-fired ships. And nothing has changed much since then. We're still using oil later on. But for the next major change, we're going to need a pure genius to come up with a suitable solution that's going to push the world forward in shipping on this. But the start is definitely the IMO giving us hard targets, and irrespective of what a ship owner, a ship manager, or anybody else says, they need to be bold and put it in front of us, and then I'm sure we can do it.
Yeah, I think we can do it. That's definitely a good takeaway already at the start. So, Chris, I think, of course, roadmap, feel free to share your views on the roadmap, but I would like to bring in another thought. And the question is really, what do you think are other drivers for change apart from the regulators? So what's the role of ESG, for example, in corporate policies? Is it just greenwashing or a real catalyst for change? And that combined with the question, who takes responsibility there? Maybe you can share your views on these points we've just started looking at.
Sure. Well, yeah, as everybody has mentioned, the goal is set by IMO. We have to reduce our CO2 emissions by 70% by 2050. But we also have to keep in consideration that there's also some regional targets that have been set. So the EU, for example, have set a 55% GHG reduction target by 2030. And when you read the small print, all these targets are using different baselines. So the EU are using 1990 as a baseline. IMO is using 2008. And then recently we had the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announce that the UK would be committing to a 78% reduction by 2035 on 1990 levels. So it's, I think, what would be useful is having a common baseline, which 1990, 2008, 2018. That would be useful for not just the shipping industry but all industries. In terms of the roadmap, we've got a lot of really great initiatives out there. One being the Global Maritime Forum's Getting to Zero coalition, where there is a clear 4-phase roadmap on how we're going to get zero emission vessels on the water and operating by 2030. And this coalition is it's not just industry, it's not just ship owners, but it's charterers, it's lenders, some NGOs, energy companies, all stakeholders banding together with the same goal in mind, is to get these zero emission vessels on the water by 2030. So there's a roadmap. And in parallel to that, we've got the Maersk McKinney Muller Center for Zero Emission, what is it called? The Zero Carbon Shipping, which is also looking into the technical nitty-gritty on how to decarbonize the industry. So I think it's although the regulators play an important role to set the targets, it's really the industry that is going to drive the change, and I think we're already on a good way. There needs to be some more clarity on whether we are talking about life cycle emissions or just well-to-wake emissions, because there's all sorts of very promising future fuels out there, whether it be ammonia or methanol or biofuels, but the discussions are a bit distorted, because some are comparing the emission credentials based on just the combustion on board the vessel, while others are analyzing the entire life cycle emissions. So that's another important factor that needs to be taken into consideration. Is there a lot of greenwashing? I would say that in every industry there is some level of greenwashing. I don't think I don't believe any of our good companies on the call are involved in that, but there is greenwashing, and I think ESG is the natural evolution of corporate social responsibility, and this is going to clear out any or a good portion of the greenwashing that's already been happening up to this point. So while corporate social responsibility was very much being popular 10 years back, and companies had were promoting what they're doing in that regard on their websites, etc. Now with this evolution, this move to environment, social governance, we see a shift from qualitative to more quantitative assessment of companies' actions. So with ESG, and I think it's a very, very positive movement, not just for the shipping industry, but for all industries. You can actually measure year-on-year change and compare companies' progress against each other. So this in itself is driving change in the right direction at the right speed.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for your statement. I think you probably answered already the next question, which would come up, but you already referred to the voluntary industry initiatives like getting to zero collision. I think Poseidon Principles more on the finance side of things. Chicago Charter is another one, and you mentioned others. So you would, if I understand that correctly, because my question, what do you think is their impact in comparison to the regulator steps being taken? If I understand correctly, you see there is quite an impact from these voluntary initiatives which have been taken, or even more important than what the regulator is doing, or just as you raised that point, maybe I can take that up with you again.
Yes, definitely. So particularly the Poseidon Principles, which is falls under the Global Maritime Forum, and the Chicago Charter, which also falls under the Global Maritime Forum. They've basically taken the IMO's carbon and greenhouse gas reduction targets that they've committed to the industry, and drawn out a clear roadmap on how to get there. In other words, not just saying, right, 2050 we have to be here, but graft a clear emission reduction trajectory from today all the way to 2050. So, and we'll see that coming in now on the IMO level, probably as soon as 2023, once IMO have adopted the carbon intensity indicators, the CIIs. Most likely it will be the annual efficiency ratio. And this is likely to be adopted next month at MEPC. So these are all gradually aligning with each other, both industry, both regulatory, the regulatory framework and the industry-led initiatives.
Okay, thanks. Lucienne, do you have a view or experience in these voluntary industry initiatives in the context of what we are discussing today?
Yeah, I mean, as cruise line, we are part of the CLIAR, the Cruise Line International Association. There's a lot of cooperation going on. Nevertheless, the CLIAR has also set some voluntary goals that are a little bit more ambitious than the IMO goals. Nevertheless, my feeling, not only in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, but in general in sustainability management, is that you can't really wait on the regulators. Sorry.
Sure, no worries.
So it's really important for you as a company to think about. So first, you have to get your data in place. You have to know your footprint, your ecological footprint, your sustainability footprint as such, and then you have to make really your ambitious goal for your company, and then see if there are some voluntary initiatives out there that they meet your ambitious goals or your topics you want to cover as your company. And I felt that within the shipping industry, of course, they came up over the last couple of years, mostly focusing on emissions, actually. So of course, emission is a big part for us, but also looking at ESG, and we are doing it since 10 years, looking on sustainability and environmental management. We have looked on a lot of different topics, such as waste, food waste, supply chain, and all these different topics. And there's a lot of initiatives out there, voluntary initiatives. We can't wait for regulators to find these topics and then do something. You have to be proactive to really move forward. Otherwise, you are just running after the policies.
Yeah, no, absolutely, fully understood. Thank you, Lucienne. I think at this point, I would like to ask you, Christian, with regard to some element we have not touched on, because we touched on regulators and initiatives among the industry players. But obviously, all the ESG topic around, what influence does the end consumer and the general public may have? Do you have thought about that before?
I'm sure that consumers are clamoring for eco-friendly products and responsible corporate behavior these days. And I honestly expect that the ability to pass through increased fuel costs, as an example, to consumers is likely to be high, especially in container ships, which carry a large number of consumer goods with decent margins, and the additional costs for consumers will be fairly low. Rightly so, they feel better buying from ethical retailers, so to say, and they will be prepared to pay a small premium. I guess while shipping will remain, by far the most efficient way of transporting goods with the lowest emission footprint over long distances, we all agreed, and I heard that today, that improvements are feasible and will also increasingly be requested by shippers. That might even require some sort of certificate stating a low transportation footprint. I'm aware that logistic companies have begun to rank some of their liner services according to their emissions, and I'm convinced that the awareness is certainly here to stay. Consumers will definitely push the change, and evasion will be a short-term strategy at best.
Yeah, probably all agree. I can imagine. So yeah, end consumer and public are obviously is an element we have all to keep in mind. I think, Martin, what would you think in terms of pressure from industry participants? How effective could that be if you think of owners, managers, charterers, and financiers, investors, when looking at ESG? How effective is their influence on the topic?
Well, in investors, particularly when they're out in the public, they are now seeking from us, even as ship managers, they're seeking the data from us. They want to know what the impact is that their asset has on the environment. In the past, it was never there, and there's more and more people searching for this data. We were not the best in the past at collating this data and measuring it, and certainly we were reluctant to make it public. It's good that the EU MRV and also the IMO DCS has pushed us as an industry to hand over the data to them, and then they will use it to make policies, whereas in the past he couldn't do that. Now that's for the major things that was out there. Investment companies are also hearing from their own shareholders that they want to know, like, what is my investment doing? Is it having a detrimental impact on the environment, on society? And the only answer the only place where they're going to get the answer from is from us, is from the people who are managing those ships. The other hard part is, well, I think what Christopher alluded to is, there's no standard out there at the moment. Nobody has agreed on what we should be putting forward. There's so many different initiatives. We, BSM, have decided that we are going to go with the Global Reporting Initiative, when it comes to us putting our data forward and then releasing it to the market. But then we're a large company, and there's smaller people out there who don't have the knowledge, the know-how, or even the direction of where to go. We certainly don't have I wouldn't say we don't have an option, but we do have a moral obligation to share this information with everybody, so we see how we're all doing. And we can see that when you go on people's websites, you know, the first thing you search for is the ESG report for the last year. But it's a challenge. It's a big challenge for the industry in general to move it, because this has only happened in the last few years. Okay, Lucienne said they've been running this for the past 10 years, but you look at a ship owner who has 10, 15 ships, and he's saying, you know, well, what can I share? You know, like, nobody's really looking at me. But, you know, as a group, I suppose that's when you have to start speaking with the likes of BIMCO, Intertanko, those large organizations, and they give guidance on this. So yeah. It's
I think that probably if one asks the question, who shall take the lead on the topic, I'm not sure what your conclusion would be. I think you mentioned a few. Probably it's a mix of people leading that, or what do you think?
The lead, we all look to see who's caught. We all look to see where the biggest impact is, and it's the ones that have the biggest impact should be leading. So it's us big ship managers. It's the people who are well known within the industry. Sometimes we do need the likes of the IMO and the EU to make decisions, because the industry is so conservative. They're not willing to say, okay, we do this. It's not going to it's going to impact us it's going to impact us our profit, but you know, on the long run, it'll be better for society and for the environment. But everybody is looking at everybody else to make the first move. It's everybody's afraid of losing something here, which is wrong. It cannot be more obvious than we all share this data. And I suppose when we start sharing it, then everybody realizes where we are, and we can all help each other. And I just go back to that point with the Sulfur Cap 2020. Everybody had made such a song and dance about it, and then when it happened, it was like, oh, it was that easy. And the same is going to happen when it comes to the new when we have to have our SEMPs approved, and also when we start getting rated under the new EEXI, the new energy efficiency existing index. It's just going to, it comes in, and those that don't meet the target, they'll just have to do something and hit it. So as far as my own personal opinion is that it does need the governance to come in first for the rest to follow.
Yeah. Okay, that's a helpful comment. I think, Chris, when we're talking about taking the lead and consumers and all the stakeholders, what do you think there's, I think not for you, but generally speaking, sufficient public forums around, or is that generally the message of expectations sufficiently covered to the industry and around, so to understand who has to do what? What do you think about messaging the topic?
I think the message is out there. It's communicated. I don't think anybody in the industry can say that they were not aware of what the targets were and what they needed to do to get there. The initiatives I mentioned earlier, the Maersk McKinley initiative and the Getting to Zero coalition, I think those are cross-industry and intra-industry initiatives that will be the driving force for change. So that will be the mechanism to attain the IMO's and the EU's carbon and greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. So I don't believe that we necessarily need any additional initiatives there. I think that companies themselves will have their own internal initiatives and plans to get there, as well as participating on these with these coalitions. Information sharing, experience sharing is important, but I definitely think we're on the right track, and I'm fully confident that we will make it. As Martin mentioned, we managed to reduce sulfur emissions in beginning of 2020, down from 3.5 to 0.5. So now we're shifting to carbon, and we can do it. The technology might not be there at this stage for shipping, but they're working on it. The technology the technology providers, the engine manufacturers, they're working actively on it. So the two big engine manufacturers, they are working on an ammonia engine. There's already a methanol powered engine. I believe we have a multi-fuel future. I don't believe there's going to be one solution fits all. I believe there's going to be ammonia, there's going to be hydrogen derived fuels that we'll need to adopt into the industry. But companies like Oldendorff, where we are operating on the tramp trade, spot market, we don't have the luxury of, say, the container lines and the cruise ships, where they know their schedule, months and months in advance. So it's important for us to have the surety of the fuel's going to be in these ports at the right quantities, at the right volume, at the right time, because and I think that it's a typical chicken and egg dilemma, similar to LNG. So 20 years ago, when we were talking about LNG, the ship owners are saying, yeah, but we would convert to LNG or would build LNG powered ships, but there's no LNG bunkering facilities. The infrastructure is not there. And nobody wanted to invest in the infrastructure because they said, well, there's no LNG powered ships for the business model to work. So to create the business, the demand for the fuels at these facilities. So, and it took 20 years before, what, I think 1.5% of the global tonnage to be LNG powered. And I think we're going through this whole phase again with these future fuels, alternative fuels, whether it's biofuel, ammonia, methanol, and somebody has to make the first move. And there's also some really encouraging developments in the arena of wind assist as well. So Oldendorff have quite recently signed a joint development project for Finnern rotors to see if we can harness the power of the wind so not as a primary source of thrust for the ship, but to assist. So the master can come off the throttle, can save fuel, reduce emissions, and still maintain similar service speeds that we're used to. So the future is bright, fully optimistic. We'll get there.
Very good. That's interesting. And after sort of these statements we received, I think it would be interesting to hear from the audience. So we raise a further question, because having touched on the background a bit, what you as audience consider, it was touched by Lucienne, ESG, so there's threefold. So what do you think is most important? Is the E, the S, the G, or all three of equal importance? So please share your views from the audience with us, please. Here we go. Okay, not sure if that is a surprise to the expert on the call, but I think at least very interesting to hear at that point. So let's with all in mind what we discussed, move to one further element of the topic, and that's collaboration and partnerships between stakeholders. And I would like to ask you, Christian, are you already teaming up with partners, and what do you think is needed in terms of joint initiatives under the heading ESG and sustainability?
Absolutely, yes. I think from our perspective, joint initiatives will be key to accelerate a project and also allocate risk reasonably. Nobody will build up meaningful production capacities for alternative fuels without the commitment of off-takers, and no owner will speculatively order a fleet of vessels betting on a specific fuel to become ready up and launching. Same holds true for the engine manufacturer, as Christopher has just mentioned, that methanol engines are ready, but ammonia and some others, they're working on it, and something else needs to happen first, right? So therefore, we are actively joining initiatives and teaming up with strategic partners. Also on the technology side, we are always interested to get in contact with like-minded to accelerate the development. And I guess through our joint venture, Wilhelmsen-Ahrenkiel, we have access to the Wilhelmsen Group, obviously, which controls the largest maritime network globally and plays a significant role in a number of other joint ventures and sustainable initiatives, from battery-powered zero-emission vessels already to different hydrogen initiatives. And we feel that there is really a lot to learn from each other, and that this journey, on this journey, and since it is much more about creation instead of competition in a way, so it's absolutely a need to do that.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds quite promising. I think, Lucienne, cruise operation is obviously much more special and a niche, and if you compare it with merchant shipping. So is collaboration, are partnerships with other shipping companies or those outside the shipping industry something you had to cruises look at or are already conducting?
I'm a little bit hesitant because what I experienced over the last 10 years, that in the cruise industry, it's highly competitive because you have the direct guest, you are trying to get on your ship, yeah. So it's kind of really competitive to get your product sold. So honestly, I would say the collaboration is more amongst the cruise line groups. So for us, it's the Royal Caribbean Group with different brands under it. So there is TUI Cruises, there's Azamar, there was Azamar. There's Celebrity Cruises, there are the Royal ships. Now it's Hapag-Lloyd Cruises. So so what we can do is now with the different brands, we can collaborate there, share experience. We have different pilot projects within the different brands, but the knowledge transfer is very intense. So I would say that it's more amongst the very big cruise line groups that there's a lot of collaboration, but not so much between then the competitive, competing companies. Actually, I mean, you have to understand most of them are shareholder, are driven by shareholder interest. So it's kind of, I would say there's a lot of competitive factors there that makes it a little bit hard to really make there some collaborations to really exchange technical knowledge. Of course, you are helping each other on different forums, and on a working level, you are working or exchanging experience. But what I want to stress is much more the very long-term or long-lasting collaboration we are doing with the technical partners, such as our engine supplier or other technical supplier, that we are working for a couple of years, and really with them partnering up and pushing them also to develop their product further, but also offering to bring these new products on our ships and give them a try. So I think that's much more valuable than that is the collaboration. We are then really doing some progress here, some technical innovation progress here, I would say.
Yeah, there, of course, the competitive element, probably it's easier for container vessel operations to join forces.
Yeah, it's much more in the background, you know. So for the guests,
yeah.
it's also the sustainability performance of a cruise liner. It's much more in the forefront of the guest communication. So over the last years, while I'm working in the industry, you could really see that sustainability was not really kind of a public topic there. Of course, the cruise liners were working on them, but more kind of on a low level. And then the media attention was kind of like a boom to the industry. Yeah. So there was crazy media coverage and reports out there, crazy numbers. No one was really questioning, like very famous comparison to cars and everything. And we were like faced with like, oh, what's going on there? But the customers picked up on that, and they were really like writing emails, asking the captain in these nautical question rounds we have on board, like, yeah, what kind of fuel you are using and how bad is it to be on it? So, you know, so the guest media attention got very big in, I would say, between 2010 and 2015. That now with the sustainability topic within your company's strategy, it's really a big factor right now. So, and that makes it a little bit competitive, because now, and that's for me as an environmental human being, like really pushing for this topic, it's kind of a very comfortable situation right now, because now it's kind of a run to the top, you know, like the cruise lines are trying to get who's the first one to apply this technology, or who is the first one to be zero carbon or doing this and that. So kind of, you know what I mean? It's kind of very a public race to being the greenest company. Of course, there's a lot of greenwashing also involved and whatever. You have to be very careful. But I guess for the industry, it changed a lot during the last 5 to 8 years, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Lucienne. I think now being conscious of time, let's cover briefly the new technologies. So how to prepare in terms of technology. So Christian, would you say the industry is moving quickly enough in terms of the time scale which is available? So are you seeing already projects going live in terms of fuels and technology?
I think the most of the fundamental technical solutions and concepts are already there. I mean, partially developed in the last century, and we've been talking with a lot of companies recently, pushing these towards market readiness now. So things are definitely moving. Also, many fuels have been used by other industries long before they have been adopted as a fuel on shipping. I mean, LNG existed for 50 years before it was introduced for all ship types a couple of years ago. But reaching world scales, and that's what we need, and adequate price points is a tremendous challenge. Also asking for the right allocation that not only depends on the shipping industry alone, right? But irrespectively thereof, we are seeing an increasing variety of promising pilot projects, testing the ground and actually showing what's possible. I already mentioned hydrogen and battery projects I'm aware of initially, but as the focus of Mpc Capital, as you mentioned in the beginning, Christian's activities is not only shipping and real estate, but since many years also renewable energies. I guess that we have quite a good insight into many projects and initiatives which will support the transition of the shipping industry as well to a net zero emission future. And we have recently listed MPC Energy Solutions in Oslo and as well, and they will develop and invest in renewable energy generation and energy storage. And the shipping and renewable teams are currently working on solutions which will, for example, include alternative propulsion systems or specific fuel networks. So there's a lot of things happen there.
Yeah, of course. I think the renewable energy work I see also my colleagues doing. I think that there's a lot we can look what they have done already. I think Martin. I think without, of course, if you have thoughts on the collaboration point, but now being with the technology, don't want to feel free to share your views on collaboration. I think, but also again, given the time, I would be interested to see what you from BSM are already doing in terms of technology and fuels and testing, and already having projects going on or even being used. So could you, to the extent not
from a technological point of view, we have a sister company called Innoport, and they invest in a number of startups that can assist a ship manager. Obviously, we don't make the decision what to buy, what not to buy, what to install, what not to install. We just guide. But we do look in the market to see what's out there to making a significant difference on how we manage ships, particularly the as I said, the impact it has. And we've just recently partnered with a company called Signal, and some people might find it out there. They've already helped Virgin Atlantic save in the region of about $6.1 million over an 8-month period. And that was just through a change in behavior. And we've brought them on board ourselves when it comes to saving fuel, just by encouraging the crew to change the way they behave on board and think a little bit more. The costs for saving fuel, they said, would be in the region of about 10%, give or take. That's massive, considering that you've put nothing on board except for educating and bringing awareness of managing a ship's engines and also the ship itself. And that's key for us as a ship manager, is these small little steps that we can do. Now, as I said, we don't buy vessels. You know, a ship owner comes and he says, "Can you look after our ship?" And gladly, and do the best job that anybody can do out there. But it's the technology that's available to us as well. So we also have another sister company, Mariapps, and it's a full suite of applications, from ensuring that the performance of the engine is maintained at the optimal level. And we keep looking at these innovative ideas out there. You know, we're not buying off the shelf. We're seeking all the time. We all know that in the US, the amount of startups that are born and they don't reach market is quite high. Before you hit the jackpot, you might have to go through 250 failures. And that's something that the maritime industry is apprehensible about. They don't want to take the risk and invest in significantly new technology. But that's something that we're addressing as a company ourselves. So if you watch this space, you'll see it grow. There's just one question that came in here, and I'd like to answer before we run out of time. It says,
sure.
Can we share real data of emissions from our managed fleet already today, or at a point in the future? Yes, we can. We actually get the figures in on a 12-hour basis from our full managed fleet. So at any time during a week, we can tell you how much emissions has been generated from our ships. And I guarantee you go back 6 years, maybe 10 years, no shipping company would be able to give you that. And now it's real time. The customer, they want to know, okay, what have you done today? And we can now share that to our own customers, meaning the ship manager. They come on board, they go into the Mariapps application, they look up live feet, and they see exactly where their ship is, and they can find out over the last 24 hours how much carbon has been emitted into the atmosphere. It's fact, it's there, but at least we now can show it to people, particularly our owners. And then when that's put out, more pressure is put on ourselves to reduce that. And again, we also see other shipping companies, or I wouldn't say other large ship owners, coming to Mariapps and seeking that information, or should I say seeking that software, so they can, again, make it available to people.
Yeah, very, very interesting information. So I think now, having heard about technology, and obviously that sounds to me, of course, there are costs, there's investment in implementing all this. Chris, in terms of payment, who do you think, who will pay the bill for all this? Who is the one who you could invoice for making your ships greener? What is your experience or your view going forward?
Well, it's a very good question, Christian, and this is one of the open questions that the European Commission are having on the discussion of bringing maritime into the EU ETS, is whose responsibility is it? So I think that it makes sense that the polluter principle, the polluter pays principle should apply. So as a ship owner, if you've got your vessel chartered out, you're not in control of how that vessel is operated. That charterer can choose to slow speed. That charterer can choose to go full ahead. Charterer can choose to fill the cargo holds to maximum capacity, or sail on a part load. So I think the responsibility should be shifted to that party who's responsible for giving the orders to the master. And yeah, polluter pays principle should apply, therefore.
Yeah. Okay. Probably a challenge for the chartering desks in the companies to handle all this.
It will be.
And Lucienne, in terms of first movers, if you're very deeply in the topic, do you see that there is a risk for first movers attending to the topic, or would you see there is a reward from the public, from the consumers? If you take these steps, what do you think with regard?
I mean, it's both. You of course have the risk, and within a company, within the decision process for new technologies, for example, not only for emissions, but when it comes to wastewater, for example, or solid waste processing on board of our ships. I mean, that really huge ships processing waste from over 3,000 people a day. So we are looking into innovative technologies here. And of course, you have in the internal decision process a lot of different opinions saying like, it has never been tested on such a big ship. How can we apply that? And then you have the other group saying like, yeah, but if we don't test it, we can't get actually being the first mover here and showing how innovative we are. I mean, you can only be an innovator if you are the first mover. So, and I think within the last couple of years, the term innovation has really getting something sexy to it. So, of course, everyone wants to be kind of an innovator or will be called an innovator. So you have to be a little bit bold and brave to go that line. But I think the reward is even better, because then that gets you the not only attention, but also the credibility that you are putting in there. Money, time, creativity, and so on. So I guess, especially in our new build projects, we have proven to really be innovative. Of course, with hiccups, and first installed on a ship, and it gives you a little bit more headache. But on the next ship, it's even better. And then at the end, you have been really reached something. So I would say definitely rewarding.
Yeah. Sounds good. I think to touch on another topic, at least to have it on the group here, is of course we have the pricing, but also there's the finance element. And Christian, what are you seeing in terms of finance available from traditional shipping banks, and what's the structure for lending? Are there alternatives around with sustainability in mind?
I think we have seen many alternative debt financing structures aiming at filling the gap, really, which is left by the traditional banks withdrawing from the shipping segment. And access to funding will be crucial, as you rightly said, when looking at it on a larger scale, which is certainly required for the energy transition we have been discussing here. But the changing risk profile, of ship financing actually requires also new debt providers. And this trend will likely continue in our mind. Innovative solutions will play an important role to achieve their goals. And I think that hard asset investing and lending, specifically secured by fungible assets like ships, will continue to be attractive one way or another. But as an asset manager, I can tell you that with a very long track record on ship financing, we are also looking at the sector as we speak. And since we are convinced that there remains a financing gap and that the transition comes with many risks, but also represents a very appealing business opportunity.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think before we really have to get to an end, obviously, we have Martin already took the question we see on the Q&A tool. There is a question to Lucienne. Do your customers, cruise tours, already require greener technology when they book their travel? And is ammonia an option for TUI cruises readily available? So
so first one, I would say they don't require it, kind of like, oh, if there's no this or that on the ship, then I won't book it, because mostly they are not so much into the technology topics when they are booking a cruise. There are other factors who is decisive to what kind of cruise I'm booking. But what we experience is that the customers are asking more and more questions before the cruise, during the cruise, but also after. So it's getting more and more attention, not only about the technology, but like waste practices, or what kind of food we are offering, or what happens to the wastewater. So they get more and more aware. They are asking questions, but it's still not kind of that they would kind of choose another cruise liner if they are not happy with the answer. To ammonia, I wouldn't focus on ammonia right now when replying, because we are looking at a lot of different topics. I think options. I think we also, even for our fleet, we will have a multi-fuel approach here, depending at where the ship will be deployed then. So ammonia is I wouldn't say it's high on the agenda, because there are some side effects of it. And we have like guests on board, so you also have a psychological element to it, what kind of fuel you are using. We're looking at some different options. Ammonia is on the list, but at the moment not high on the list.
Okay, thanks for that. I think, Christian, the question into energy transition to be financed in shipping, I think you touched on that, or that's done. And I think there's a question on slow steaming to meeting CO2 and methane emission goals. Chris, is that something, slow steaming, where you think that helps us to get forward massively, or is that just a tool you can use but not a must?
Yeah, that's an operational measure to reduce CO2 emissions for sure. In terms of methane emissions, methane emissions tend to be more from LNG powered vessels, although the methane slip issue seems to be largely getting resolved on the vessels. We don't have any LNG powered ships, but I can just speak from my discussions with other industry experts, is that most of the methane slip is happening through the rest of the supply chain, rest of the value chain. So from refining and transportation, and not so much from the combustion of the LNG on board the vessel itself. But yeah, the CO2 can definitely be reduced from through slow steaming, and advanced weather routing also helps. Making sure you've got a well polished hull and a cleaner hull and propeller.
Yeah, thanks for that assessment. I think final question to all of you also. I think we could continue easily for one or two further hours, but that was not the plan. We do that maybe next time. Just go around and try to do a short answer. How confident are you that the industry will meet the ESG targets over the next decade, Lucienne? Are you confident?
I mean, I can, yeah. So referring to our carbon and environmental and social targets we are setting, I'm confident. Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Martin, what do you think?
It's just started. Waiting, we see this. Yeah, more and more people putting their ESG reports out there, particularly the small players. And when we see that happening, it'll get better. That's for sure. But there is one thing I want to knock on, is that poll you put out earlier. 50% of the votees believe that the environment was the important bit. And I've listened to a number of these webinars and people high up. It's actually governance that has to push this through. Otherwise, the other two are not going to follow very much. And we saw that with the sulfur cap 2020, just as an example only, where everybody had a lot to say. Oh, not too sure if it's going to work. And then it did. Everybody went quiet. So yeah, it's important that the people who are making these rules, you know, are pushed to believe in the data that we put out there is correct. And the only way that will happen is if we do make our data available to everybody.
Thanks, Martin. Christian, are you confident?
Absolutely, it's doable. It will all be driven by consumers who are observing how their orders are shipped and by increasing regulation. But it's absolutely doable. Yes.
And Chris, sure.
Fully optimistic on the environmental side. I mean, we've seen the Fridays for Future movement where we've had a sort of bottom-up pressure that really just changed not just the way the shipping industry look at themselves, but all industries. But I think that ESG will eventually become corporate norm. At the moment, what I've noticed is it seems to be more focused on the public listed companies. So if you go to the NASDAQ website, you'll see this ESG guidelines for listed companies. Not so much on the private companies, but I think that eventually it will be adopted as a corporate norm for all companies, both public and private, and that's a positive positive development.
Yeah, thank you to all as speakers, and thank you to the audience for taking the time to join us today. As said, we could easily continue, but maybe we do a wrap up in 1 year's time and see where we stand then. Later today, you will receive a follow-up email with some relevant materials and a short feedback survey. Your feedback is, as usual, very important to us to ensure we are delivering events that are relevant and engaging. I think like today, thanks to the speakers. So please take 2 or 3 minutes to complete it. Thanks for that. If you dialed in by phone, just worth to note, send us a quick email at events@wfw.com so that we can send you the materials on your email. Having said all that, I wish you all a very nice day. Keep safe, keep healthy, yeah, keep fingers crossed that the development continues as we've discussed. So stay in touch, give us a call, write us an email if you want to discuss further. We're happy to relay your questions to the speakers if you have those after the session. And again, thank you very much and see you soon.
Thank you.
Goodbye.